In this video, I'm gonna tell you how I keep hundreds of fish, have 9 aquariums, and a pond, and how I manage it all, and why it's important, and why you should keep an aquarium too. I've been keeping fish for years. I love them, they're an escape for me, and they provide me so much joy and happiness. My fish are having a great time. Stay tuned to see what new rare fish I have. What we're gonna do is feed all the fish, and I'm gonna tell you why these fish are so awesome and why you should keep some. These are some of my favorite fish, so let's show you. All right, so we got our beautiful food rack right over here, and I'm gonna grab some flakes. We're gonna skip over this tank because that tank has the new rare fish in it, but in this tank, we have the angels, one guy being a bully, so he's in timeout. But we got the angels right here with some cories and a couple other fish. Right there, you can see one of the cories hiding in between the plant, his little eyeballs right there. And then we got some loaches in here as well. You can also see my African leaf fish. This fish is super cool. It looks like a leaf, and when it's hunting, it'll stay frozen for a bit and then pounce on the fish or the shrimp if it's gonna eat that. Oh, he just went away. I'm gonna put some flakes in here. Oh, that might have been a bit much. Gotta make sure I get the guy in the little jail. I gotta release him soon. I keep saying that in every video, but I gotta make sure he's doing well. And I also wanna rescape this tank before doing all that, and that'll be a perfect time. All right, now that they're eating, you can see them hitting the top. The angels eat about anything. And then in here, you got the barb tank, which is also custom with some Brochardies and some little Lucipinus catfish in the back hiding. You can see his little head. And then we got my little plecos that are breeding and had laid eggs recently. But we'll feed them something different. So I'm gonna put some flakes in this tank. And then we got the guppies over here, type of Endler. We're gonna give them some flakes as well. I recently redid this tank a bit to clear it up with all the algae. And then we're gonna add some flakes to the platy tank. There's also some orange shrimp in here, as you can see. They're really, really cool. I think I'm gonna try to breed them to get some really cool colors. Look how bright that shrimp is. Look at him go. He's just dancing. He knows food's in the tank. But you can see them all eating, doing pretty well. So then we have the guppy tank 2.0, or the panda guppy tank. And now we're gonna feed them these flakes as well. Not too much. And then we got the platy tank. Thankfully, these guys are doing much better. Some are still, doing a little worse for wear, but we're also doing a water change. So after a few more water changes, I think this tank, the fish should be doing well and then be ready to go to the pond. I'm also gonna give these guys flakes in this tank. This is the little pleco tank, the bristle nose you can see down there. We're gonna give them some flakes and the white cloud minnows. Look at them. Look at the little bristle. Look at his little face. Look at this little bristle guy. It looks like he has little bristles on like the tip of his nose right there, which is really cool, looking like a little rhino almost. And then you got the babies in here as well, right on the glass. Look how cute these guys are. They got little bellies, they're all plump. For the African cichlid tank, we're gonna feed something else. So not flakes, so I'm just gonna put these up here. I actually put the African cichlid food in one of these containers. That's not it. No, actually it's the one on the bottom. Just because it was easier to mix all their food in there. Please don't fall. All right, so don't ignore the label. We got a nice mix of blue and yellow cichlids in here, as well as a lot of babies, as you guys can see. So we also have a mix of little food, big food for everybody. And we got a lot of catfish that will start to come out as we're feeding. So just gonna dump that in. Wow, look at them go. You might say that's a lot of food, and it might be now that I'm thinking about it, but there's a lot of catfish in here, probably around like 12 to 15 catfish if I remember correctly. So they'll come out and pick at it, and then the baby fish that come out of the little caves, like this guy right here. Look. Right there, he's poking out, he's trying to get food. This is what I love, like when you have a natural tank like this, where the fish are able to breed and then have their babies, you just see the babies poke in and out of them, and then, oh look, you got a little piece of food, like poke in and out, and then the catfish are also coming in and out. So you can see the catfish like this corner because it's really dark, and then there's another one there. But they're all eating, doing pretty well. I recently rescaped the tank, so check out that video if you guys are interested. And then we're gonna come back to this tank because we're also gonna give these plecos some pellets. Plecos can eat a wide variety of things, so just give them some pellets. There's about 6 or 7 of them in here, and they'll go to town on that. And then last but not least, but we're gonna feed the really rare fish tank, but I'm gonna tell you guys what that fish is in the end, but we're just gonna add some flakes to that tank for now, which is the 90 gallon. So I'm gonna read one of the comments you guys left on one of my last videos. Make sure to comment down below what fish you keep, things you like in the videos, and overall how you're doing. So the comment is from Cold Water Tanks, which says, beautiful tanks you got there, especially love the 90 gallon and the 125 cichlid tank. And the pond is really interesting. Thank you, Cold Water Tanks. He also has a channel, so check him out. He posts some really interesting cold water fish and tank setups. All right, you might be asking yourself, how am I able to keep so many aquariums and so many fish? And that's a really good question, because for the most part, when I had all these aquariums, I was a student and working full time, and how can I take care of them all? The first thing to being able to keep so many fish in aquariums is being able to do water changes. Now this will ultimately determine the health of your tank and how well it does overall and how fast you can grow and get more fish and more tanks. So I cleverly came up with a system that I mimicked off others to create my own automatic water change system. So you can see that system is right here. So this is where the water comes into the room, and then these pipes go to all the tanks, and then all the tanks have their little drains on the back of the tank. So you can see that drain way over there. Some are plumbed. I've also built my own drains, which are like on these tanks, and that all drains out into the yard over here with the pond. You might be asking, like, what's a water change? Why is that important? A water change allows you to take and remove a lot of the debris and waste from the tank and refresh that for the fish. Ultimately, that determines how healthy your fish are gonna be, how awesome they're gonna be. You can have no water change tanks. However, you need to have a lot of plants to be able to do that, so it soaks up the waste. So think of it like that. Like, fish need healthy, clean water just like you or anybody else. So making sure you can get that water in and out will be really, really good for the fish. The second really important thing is doing your research and knowing well how to keep the fish. I've been in this hobby for many, many, many years, and I've kept hundreds of different types of fish over the years, different tanks, different setups, all the time. So I'm constantly learning and also researching and seeing how other people do it. Just because there's one way online doesn't mean it's the right way all the time. So be very mindful that your experience might be very different than somebody else's, because your water from your city or your tap is gonna be very different and can affect how and what fish you can keep all the time. So make sure you do your research before getting into any fish. I have kept some of these fish for years before getting into some of the expensive fish like discus over here. I did my research, I was wary of them, and then you get them from a reputable breeder or local fish shops. Third thing you might be wondering is, how do you afford all this? Right? Like, I was a student when I got all these tanks and working and just didn't really have a lot of money. I was very fortunate that I knew a local pet shop and I was able to get all these tanks at a very discounted rate. And if you don't have access to that, Petco and PetSmart are also companies that offer $ per gallon sales, which I've also done. And if that's not an option, you can look at Facebook Marketplace and a couple other places to buy tanks. So there are tanks around, sometimes people give them for free. So just make sure that you know how old the tank is. For glass tanks, they tend to start leaking or have issues after about 10 years. So just be very mindful of how old the tank is and look at the tank seals. The seals are on the side of the tank, and just being mindful of that. Also, food can cost quite a bit. Depending on the fish you have, you might need more expensive food. Like if you're keeping eels and stingrays and things like that, they tend to need more frozen foods like fish cuts and things like that. Or other fish can just take flakes or pellets. So be very mindful of what fish you're keeping and what your budget is for this tank. I've spent quite a bit of money on my tanks, but I enjoy it. And this is something I love so much, and I've just get a lot of joy out of it. So for me, it's very much worth it to put my money towards something I enjoy. Now, you're probably wondering, how do I maintain all these tanks? So first of all, with the automatic water change system, that gets rid of a lot of time having to siphon out the tanks, and I still do siphon out the tanks every so often, but feeding them now becomes the thing that takes the most time. So just making sure you're able to keep up with that, whether it's in the morning or afternoon. I also clean the filters. Your fish aren't going to like die off really fast, but you might notice that the fish aren't as happy or as lively if you start letting one tank go or not paying attention to it. So just be mindful of that and putting the time towards it. Be like 9 tanks, there's always one tank that gets a lot of algae or one tank that's neglected. And that's what I found. Like this tank just has algae all the time, and it's a tank I care least for at the moment. compared to all the other tanks where I'm trying to make look really nice and I just put more time to. So you might be asking and wondering why I keep so many fish. In truth, it just really gets me going. I love my fish. It's fun to watch my fish grow, especially over a long period of time. But I also get bored of them and can get burnt out. And that's where you have to be very careful. I've gotten to that point before, to the point where I've moved my bed out of my room because I had too many tanks and I wanted more. But then I got burnt out and was just very upset, you know, and didn't want any tanks. And at that point, I sold them all when I moved to college, and I didn't want fish for a while because it is quite a bit of work. Make sure you have a good relationship with your local pet store. That can make like fish keeping a whole times better. If you're able to bring fish to them, ask them for how to keep the fish, what meds you need, things like that. I've been able to get credit for fish I bring back. It's a good rule, is like keep your fish for a while. Find fish that you enjoy. Look into other people's tanks, what really inspire you, and then keep fish that you really, really enjoy. Don't try to buy fish on an impulse. I've done that before. You end up not liking that tank, and then those fish maybe not as happy, and you end up bringing them back, or you know, or worse, they get sick because you're not giving them the right care. All right, so those are the rare fish that I got. They look really, really awesome. Hoping they're gonna do well. The tank has been going through some, you know, with sickness, and I've been treating it, but it should be over now, and the discus have not been affected by it. So these guys should do really, really well.